Let's talk about percentages. A percentage is really just a proportion or a portion of 100. So you'll notice up top here, we've talked about proportions before. A percentage is really just saying what number out of 100, right, compared to what we know something is over of. Okay, so a percentage is a proportion, again, a proportion of 100 as is over of. And that's a great way to remember kind of how to set these up. We'll have a second way to set them up for you. In fact, I'll glance at it real quick. There's also what we call the percentage equation. And again, we'll talk about how to kind of set that up as well. There are two great ways to solve percentage problems. So let's take a look at a couple of problems in the sort of proportion method. Then we'll take a look at a couple of them the other way around. And you can decide, which one to use on a regular basis. My guess is in your homework, make sure you read the directions. They're probably going to have you practice both. Because of course in math, we want to be able to do things multiple ways, right? We want to be able to think in lots of different ways. Great idea for real life as well, being open to think in different ways. All right, let's set up a couple of proportions here. Percent is a proportion of 100. So what percent of? Well, that just tells me that I don't know this number up top, right? I don't know this percentage number. So I'm going to call that X. What percentage out of 100, right, of 25 is 17? So I'm going to say X out of 100, right, percentage out of 100 equals is over of. Well, notice on our equation or our sentence, is 17, so is over of 25, right? And there we go. Now we can use our quick little cross multiplying if we want to. X times 25 would be 25x. And again, taking the bottom of the left side times the top of the right, 100 times 17 would be 1700. And x equals, well, we just have to divide away there. 25 is going to go into 100 4 times. So 1700, I'm thinking that that's going to be 40, would be 68 times. I do believe. But again, this would be a great time. In percentage equations especially, because we're going to be dealing with some decimals, they'd be a great time to make sure we talk about using that calculator, right? Saving ourselves the time of doing all that work. So I'm just going to verify for myself, just because, of course, I want to make sure that I get that right. If I divide both sides by 25, and sure enough, according to my calculator, 68 looks correct, and we get an answer of 68. Over here at the right, let's do the same thing. This time, though, notice we're not missing the percentage. We know it's 30%. So I'm going to say 30 out of 100 is equal to, right? 30% is the same thing as writing it as 3 out of 100, or 30 out of 100, 3 out of 10, or if you think about it in decimal form, right, 3/10 would have been 0.3. If you remember how to convert decimals and percentages, we move that decimal 2 spots, right, from that percentage, or 2 spots the other direction. Now that doesn't matter for this right now because we're already comparing it to 100. So let's do that whole is over of thing. What number is? Well, I don't know the is. Over 90 would be the of. And now we can do a little cross multiplying, right? 100x equals 30 times 90. Well, 30 times 90, 3 times 9 is 27 with a couple of zeros there. And then finally we'll divide by 100, right, to solve. Get that x totally by itself. X, or 100 times x. Let's divide away that 100. And 2700 divided by 100. Now this one I'm pretty confident in is going to be 27. Again, you're welcome to use your calculator, but hopefully you just cancel those zeros out there. And we get a nice simple 27. Which makes sense. Again, 30% or 0.3, 3/10. Well, that's less than half, right? And it's almost now near a quarter. Well, 27 out of 90, same idea. That's definitely less than half, less than 45. In fact, it's down closer to, 30 out of 90, which would be like a 1/3, right? Pretty close to 0.3, right? Not quite the same thing. But as far as my brain goes, I'm thinking those sound like pretty good answers. Again, I could always verify it directly on the calculator, right? 27 divided by 90, and see if you don't get exactly 0.3. Right? Same thing you could do over here, 17 divided by 25, and see if you don't get exactly 68%. We should probably label that one, right? We were looking for the percentage. All right, let's take a look at that percent equation. Again, just a slightly different way to refer to this. Basically, it's like taking, in fact, I'm going to go back again, sorry to be jumping around here. It's kind of like taking the 100 out of here, putting this in as a decimal now, okay? But then multiplying by of on both sides, right? It's like moving the of off of that left side, or sorry, right side, over to the left. And we're going to take a percentage of, right? And that'll be equal to or is something else. So taking a good look at it over here, our percent equation is the percentage of a number, right, of a base is, right, which we often think of it as an equal sign, r, the result. So down here at the bottom, there's three different ways this can happen. We could be missing any one of the three. So what is, well, I don't know the result, right? 30%. Now, in this case, we're not already setting up that fraction. So we need to make sure we convert our percentage to decimal form. Again, 30% is 30 out of 100, is 3 out of 10, or basically 0.3. I'm going to move that decimal place 2 spots to the left. So this is 0.3, right, as a percentage, times of, right, P of B, so 30% of 70. And very simply, we can just find that number. R will be equal to 21. And again, you can always check that on the calculator just to be sure. Decimals, of course, can be kind of tricky, but that looks like a pretty good answer to me. If you don't know the base, well, let's see how that sets up. 14 is, well, let's start off by saying 14 is then. We'll move our decimal 2 spots. 25% would be 0.25. Of what amount? Well, the amount is the base, so I'm looking for b this time. Again, you can use whatever variable you want. You can call it x if you prefer. But now I'm going to go ahead and divide then by 0.25. Divide by 0.25. Canceling again, right? Those 0.25s. And b will equal, well, 14 divided by a quarter, or 14 divided by 0.25, should be exactly 56. We have it there. And then finally, what if we're missing the percentage? Well, again, 135 is what percent? Well, I don't know that part. Of 27, right? Well, I'm taking my percentage times 27. Let's divide out that 27. Divide out that 27. And we end up getting 5, right, equals P. But now you have to be a little bit careful here. That's kind of a deceiving answer. We would have expected a decimal value, right? Because our 25% was 0.25 here. Our 30%, right, was 0.3 over here. Well, this was supposed to be a percentage. So if we're going to write this as a percentage answer, we need to move that decimal 2 spots. So if it's already 5.00, right, what I'm going to move is my decimal 2 places to the right this time, and this is actually 500%. And you can have percentages greater than 100. Kind of makes sense. 135 is what percent of 27? Well, something times 27 makes 135. It's going to have to be a pretty big number, right? A lot bigger than a decimal value. So again, 500% of that, it just means that we are getting much larger, right? A percentage of 27 times something over 100%, right, is going to make it bigger than 27. And that just sort of makes sense. All right, if you have any questions on any of those three or on a proportion method of solving, again, knowing both methods is definitely a good idea. Although in the end, when you're solving a problem, you really need to only solve it one way. Talk to your teacher if you have any questions, and have a great day.